over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing some training, right, on novations and using a novation strategy for land. What the novation is, I kind of created this whole novation idea back in 1999, and I call it the inverse purchase. And I've talked a little bit about it as in the early, when you first came in to this membership, I talked about it in a way of being able to work slimmer deals. So, so as the market heats up and the sellers are more understanding that their land is more valuable, some of them are smart enough to realize, hey, I want more money. Well, using a novation strategy, or inverse purchase strategy, you can still do those deals and not get hurt on them and make a profit. Now your profit may be slim. It could be, 5,000. And, if the winds are blowing right, you might see 10,000 out of the deal, or more. I mean, the strategy itself doesn't limit you to any money, but you can limit yourself to money depending on how hard the seller is playing ball with you. So in essence, what you're doing in this kind of a strategy is that you are allowing the seller to kind of keep, their price range that they want. And you're using an exit strategy, which allows you, again, not to have to put up any money of your own, but you are putting a buyer in your place, and you're pulling yourself out from in the middle of a buyer and seller, so that at closing, there's one contract between the seller and the buyer. And what happens is you will have filed with the county records a notice of interest, which is it acts like a lien. So for you to release the lien, you're going to give the title company a payoff, just like a lender would. If they currently have a loan on it, the title company calls up that lender and says, hey, how much is your payoff? And whatever they say, pretty much, that's what they put them in there for. So, and then they'll have you sign a release. So this is all like some additional paperwork that I'll be providing in the members area for you, but mainly going over the entire strategy. And I wanted to keep it kind of separate than everything else.
So John,
yeah, go ahead.
You're talking about, say, it's like when we are trying to wholesale, we put a property in contract, say 90 days, whatever, 180 days, and then you go and, have a moratorium, basically. You're basically trying to cloud the title so that nobody can buy it. They have to go through you, right? So you're essentially doing the same thing, but calling it basically a lien and doing that. Is that what?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's pretty much what it is.
Okay.
Now, you don't put the lien on there. You don't put the notice on there until you have a buyer, lined up and you're ready to go to closing. Again, we try, there's specific steps to it so that, you don't hurt your deal, because if you want to just maybe you can end up doing an assignment on it, or maybe you decide to do a transactional funding flip on it. There's still a lot of different ways that you can exit. This is just another way. And we don't want to cloud the title if we're going to do a transactional funding, for example. Not that it would kill your deal, right? Because you'll just release it, but it's just more paperwork that and expense that you don't have to, and time that you don't have to bother with. So you'll know if you're going to do a novation deal or not by the time you get your buyer. So you'll know your strategy on the exit side. But it sets you up to be able to do deals that normally we walk away from. Normally we say, well, it's the deal is thin, or possibly thin, and the seller is kind of demanding, and so maybe we pass on it. So but this strategy allows you not to have to pass if you don't want to. So you can just use this strategy instead. And you're going to reposition yourself in the transaction. So it gives you more latitude as well, because even if you can't meet the expectation of the seller, you're going to get the highest price for that property. And it also alleviates to a large degree the disposition. For most of these deals, we just list them on the MLS, whether that's through brokerlist.com, like a flat rate broker, or you can just as easily do, full service broker, as we've talked about. But it it makes that side of it a lot easier. That's one of the reasons I like them, and just gives you a more hands-free, less hand-holding type of transaction. So I'll be going over all those details, the type of script, which some of that script's already, written into call 2, if you'll notice. It's kind of basically there already, but we'll hammer it out a little bit more in the coming weeks.
So John, you don't go into every deal with this in mind, right?
No, we don't. So I don't really go into a deal knowing my exit usually. So as the deal transpires, it starts to tell you what you need to do to exit the deal. So we get a nice big profit spread. You're buying at 50 cents on the dollar. There's not a need to do, and probably a novation will not work for you most of the time, because you don't, one of the main downside of the novation is that the seller knows the final sales price. But if you explained it right, they're okay with it. All right. So, but when you're dealing with a 50% markup, it's hard to explain that one away. But if you're dealing with a 10% markup, no big deal. So if I'm doing if I've got something and I've got it at 50 cents on the dollar, I was able to, get the full price for it, then my options on the exit are mainly to do a transactional funding type flip, right? Or if it's small enough, the deposit can cover my purchase price or enough of it, and I put in the difference, then I can just do it that way as well. So, you don't always know going in, but as the deal starts to come together, then you start to see, okay, I've got this option, that option, and or even down to the buyer. So maybe the buyer needs your owner financing. So it might have started off where you were at one price with a buyer, but now that you got owner financing, that pulls more money off the table. And so maybe the novation comes back into play again instead of a cash deal. So, and the owner financing is, I'm referring to where you sell the note at closing. So I would come in there and buy that note at closing. So we'll get into examples, and so that you can kind of see how it works and understand. I just want to kind of get you guys' brains working now in this other direction, so that you have one more option and one more tool. And in case you get into a deal right now, there's another opportunity. Maybe you're looking at a $50,000 deal, but your seller wants $40,000 for it, but you're pretty sure you can get 50. Well, you can use a novation to make that deal happen.